Welcome to the Gamers Inn. Come on in, pull up a chair next to the fire. It looks like you've had a long journey. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and joining me as always is my co-host, Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Hello. I come from the future
The
to talk about.
future.
I don't know why. I just pulled that. I wish I could come from the future when the next great game comes out because there's nothing good coming out. March is over. Can you believe it?
Done, and March was so incredible. There was the total just shit show that was SimCity. I can't think of a better way to put that. Like, just awfulness.
Oh man, let's talk about SimCity again for an hour. Have you played? Just
I
quickly, have you
haven't gone
played?
back. I
You
still
haven't
have
gone back?
part 2 of my review to write, and I'm just like, I have better things to do with my life, SimCity. You're dead to me.
I spoke with my friend, old university roommate who I've been playing with, or I just go on Vent and play SimCity, and I asked like, when are we gonna go back to it? Like we were actually having a good time. It's like, I'm gonna go back when my neighbor stops sending me like a bunch of villains from his casino city. So, and then when my actual cop city works, because like that's the biggest issue with that game is that your key services aren't protecting you from this multiplayer social experience, right? Like I know the arsonist from Poop Town has started terrorizing my city, but my fire trucks aren't working for some reason. I don't.
Oh man, maybe he has to send his fire trucks over.
That's the problem is that everybody's volunteered their fire trucks and police cars and helicopters to go there, but it's like it's just not working. Like I have a constant, you know how they have that notification thing come up? Mm-hmm. It's just constantly talking about how Poop Town is sending all these
Goddamn
arsonists.
Poop Town.
I know. I literally had to shake my fist at the screen.
Oh man.
But enough about Poop Town. I don't
Yeah,
want to talk.
nobody wants to hear about Poop Town. What we are going to talk about this week, starting right the heck now, is Bioshock. So, guys, I have some visual cues to help those of you who need it to avoid all the spoilers in today's show, because we are talking, both Ryan and I have played all the way through the entire story. So we have full on spoiler mode going on, and this is a game you do not want spoiled for you at all, period. If someone spoils it for you, just like punch them in the junk or something. Like, just, that is unforgivable. No longer
And if they-
friends.
And if they aren't carrying their junk, just, find it and just throw it away or light it on fire. I assume we're talking about, like, their prized possessions, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
This is a PG podcast, Jocelyn.
When did that happen?
I don't know. Disney bought us.
Oh man, we'll get there later.
Right. Sorry. I'm jumping too far ahead.
Yeah, too many spoilers, dude. Okay, so here we go. We have Bioshock spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Oh my god, we have Bioshock spoilers are now happening. Dude! First of all, we now know where the stupid game gets its stupid name. Infinite.
I have a feeling you're going to be nitpicking.
I am not.
This game is fantastic. Let's start with that.
Okay,
Let's get that
I will
spoiler
say that.
right out of the way. It's a fantastic game.
Completely. It is definitely on my list of must-play games. Like, if I'm talking to somebody who has never played a game before in their life, there's, like 5 or 6 titles just like, okay, you gotta cover all the genres and you gotta cover all the good stories, and Bioshock just, yes, play this game.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Oh, who's nitpicking
like,
now?
no. I read an interesting article, and I'm sure we're going to touch on
Oh,
this.
I've read so many articles about this game, which is why I feel like it is a game everyone should play, because regardless of how you feel about the themes that it covers, or its combat, or its graphics, or whatever, it is a game that has sparked conversation within the community in a way that, I mean, I'm not counting SimCity, because there was a lot of conversation about that, but that was not the same. This is opening up new conversations and just new lines of thinking, I almost feel like, that I don't remember seeing in a while. Like, I mean, I guess you could kind of say Walking Dead did a similar kind of thing, but I mean, like, some of the articles that I've seen written about Bioshock Infinite are actually questioning the amount of violence and what we show in video games from actual gamers, as opposed to the outside community saying video games are too violent. Urgh, you know?
Well, I think the reason those articles exist is because It's sort of the narrative versus gameplay. Like one of my favorite things about this game is that it puts narrative and gameplay on the same level, which allows you to say
Somewhat,
like
yeah.
maybe you don't need to have a spinny thing on your hand that tears people's heads apart. Yeah,
Which
maybe
is
not.
pretty much, I mean, the opening scene of Bioshock was pretty much like, I loved it. The one thing that I felt that it was missing was I never felt really scared. And I feel like that's probably, I mean, even though in Rapture you have the underwater city. So if you go outside the city, you will die because it's underwater. And I mean, in Bioshock, if you fall off the edge, so go outside the city, you will die. Sorry, Bioshock Infinite, because, you're way, way high above the ground. It's a floating city, right? But
Right.
it doesn't have that claustrophobic dark feeling that Rapture had. So I felt that with the exception of the opening lighthouse scene, I was never really scared.
Well,
It gets darker
yeah.
near the end, but I was never frightened.
But is that an issue, or are we just comparing BioShock and BioShock Infinite?
Well, I mean, you have to draw the comparisons. It's the same
Yeah.
franchise, right?
Well, I know you do, but like BioShock was never a horror game. That was just sort of a
No,
byproduct
no,
of
no,
the
and
location.
I don't mean horror because a
No, I
lot of
know.
people draw parallels between like horror equals gore, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you felt your life was in peril, you felt that you had no escape, and it was very, I didn't have the factor in,
Hmm.
except for I think once I turned around and there was a bad guy like right there, and I was just like, it was at one point when you're at a control panel. I can't remember which control panel because there were lots, but you were at a control panel and you like pulled a lever and then you turned around and there was that guy with the horns,
Yeah,
like
there's that
the
one moment.
loudspeakers, and he's right there, and I was just like, oh
Yeah,
god.
I just
I think I just peed
I
a
see what
little.
you're saying, but I just don't know if it's. I don't know. I agree with you. I think there is that one moment that sort of spooks you, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Like, but I don't think the game is. I don't think they set out to like, okay, this has got to be exactly like BioShock where you're frightened. And I loved about BioShock where you kind of felt like, oh, what is this? It was part of the exploration. But this one's more, it's like a freak show. Like you're going through this city and you're interested in like the citizens and the propaganda and just this crazy religion stuff that's going on and that's just through the first three quarters of the game. The last quarter of the game sort of just takes the rails and throws you off them in terms of like the narrative and
Yeah.
what you're exploring. But
Don't get too far ahead. Don't get too far
I'm not
ahead.
I'm not getting too far
Come
ahead.
back, come back.
I'm just saying like I don't know if it not being scary was an issue for me. I never really felt that way, but
I think it would just really highlights that it's different than what I would have ever expected. And I feel like that opening lighthouse scene, I went through very slowly because I was just like, oh my God, something's gonna jump out of me. Something's gonna jump out of me. And spoilers, nothing jumps out at you. It's just like you just go up and up and up and up the stairs, and then you get launched out of a rocket ship chair thing into what is the floating city of Columbia. And I mean, this is actually one thing I wanted to ask you because I played through on the Xbox and you played through on PC.
mhm.
Okay, so graphics wise, what did yours look like? Because mine looked overblown and like there were halos around everything. As soon as you stepped into the sun, it was like everything was like glowing, but like by like this much on top of everything. I know you can't see my hands, but they're like 2 inches apart. So
I don't know. I thought it looked great.
yeah, which
I
is
never had
why
any issues graphically.
yeah, which is why I think it might just be an Xbox thing, but sometimes it was hard to look at, and sometimes the halo was so much that like Elizabeth's hair looked blonde. Like it was really funny looking. So I feel like that's just probably a graphic limitation on the Xbox side. I don't think that that's a BioShock limitation. I think it's an Xbox limitation. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to check with you and see because I know that that ruined because it kind of made everything glowy and really in your face and therefore kind of blurry because the glow was kind of taking the detail out of whatever it was, like the storefronts or the statues or the flowers or whatever. Everything was just kind of a blur of color.
I've had that issue with other Xbox games where I'm playing on my HD TV rather than my monitor, where it looks blurry and they sort of add like this out of focus feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never had that issue on the computer, and I don't know whether that's just some sort of post processing effect. I'm not a techie when it comes to
Yeah.
graphics. Actually, funny enough, I don't know how you started playing this game, but I played the game by preloading and playing at like 12:01. And one of the beauties of PC gaming is that unless you have a brand new computer that was built like the day before the game came out, you're gonna have to tweak some settings usually. So here I am, like, okay, let's play. And I hate playing a game. I want to play a game and I want to experience it for what it is. I don't want to be like, oh, it's slow. I exit, change the graphics. So I spent the first half hour like looking at tweak guides and forum posts, like I do Google search Bioshock Infinite GTX 570, like little nerd I am. I didn't end up playing till like 1 in the morning. So I love PC gaming, by the way. But yeah, no, when it get working, I loved it. And it's funny how the opening is sort of the exact opposite of the original Bioshock, where you're being shot up into the air as opposed to shot down into the sea.
Yes.
I thought that was a really good. Well, when I was playing it, I thought, oh man, that's really cool nod to the original Bioshock. This is great. So
Yeah.
I really loved
Nods
it.
to the original Bioshock.
Yeah,
Dude.
there are a few in there.
Yeah. And one made me, well, at first I was kind of angry because I was just like, whoa, whoa, what are they doing? And I was like trying to remember
Oh,
back. I'm like, oh my God, is there an Elizabeth in 1 or 2? I can't remember. Damn it.
oh yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, I swear to God, if we like just stay here, I'm going to be so angry. But
Well,
never mind.
there was some jokey jokes on the Twitter when the designer or the creator Ken Levine was like, someone tweeted him was like, "Is Elizabeth and DeWitt the father and mother of
Rapture.
the hero in Rapture?" And he's like, he usually comes up with some sarcastic response, and as we found out, that's they're not connected in that way, and they didn't do some stupid lame like, "Oh, it's a prequel, guys! Whoa!"
Who saw that coming?
Yeah. Although I agree with you. At one point, I was like, "What's going on?"
I know. It's like, please don't do this. Please don't do this. Oh, thank God you didn't do that.
But that happens like the last hour of the game.
Yeah, it's pretty much it's after all the combat is over.
Yeah, which
Because
was weird.
yeah, the
The last
combat
hour is just walking around.
yes. But we'll get there. We'll
Yeah.
get there. We still haven't made it into Colombia yet.
Yeah, let's
So
get into Columbia. So you start by almost drowning, which was fun.
yes,
I
and
don't
then
remember baptism being quite like that.
yeah, I don't really remember it, but
Oh, neither do I. But I like to think that I wasn't being drowned, and if I was, like, guys, this is like child abuse here.
oh God.
Oh shit. Well, you know what I mean. He literally
Yes,
drowned
no,
woke up in the city.
Oh my God, yeah. So you get baptized, which is pretty much drowned, and then he wakes up, comes to, is saved or whatever, and you come into Colombia.
Hmm.
And one of the first things, like you kind of wander around, you see a bunch of signs, and you're kind of like, oh my God, what's going on? Like that, thing is the same thing that's on my hand, and, like, oh, what's happening? And then all of a sudden, you go to the raffle, and they give you a baseball with a number on it, and then you win the raffle. And your prize is that you get to throw the ball, and you have to make a choice, and it's one of the only choices in the game. There's not a whole lot of choices, and this one's actually timed, so you have to make a very quick decision. Do you?
Oh, is it?
Yes, it's like I think it's got like a 3-second countdown or something.
Oh,
Um,
well, there are a lot of little choices that aren't really like that one especially was more this is probably going to have some sort of consequence. But
right.
like there's other ones in there that are just sort of like I think you flip a coin at the start, or do you even get to
Yes.
pick, or does DeWitt just sort of say
No,
something?
you flip a coin, and then you pick Elizabeth's little choker, bead or brooch or
Necklace?
whatever necklace.
Choker?
It is a choker. That's what they're called. That's what she
Oh,
wears.
really?
Yeah, it's like a
I
piece
thought they
of
were just called necklaces.
no, it's a piece of velvet that has a brooch on it. It's called a choker because they're so
In-
tight. They're very pretty, but they're tight. That's
They
what
should
they're
come up
actually
with a new
called.
name. Because choker just, it sounds like that's what I would picture those like black with spiky things on them. That's more of a choker.
Well, technically they're both chokers. They're just different styles. Anyways,
Yeah.
I'm not giving you fashion advice right now.
I'm gonna get my choker right now.
Anyways,
Now we
so
can.
you have the choice of whether you want to throw this baseball at the interracial couple or if you want to throw it at the announcer. And it was, I mean, for me, a no-brainer. Throw it at the announcer, even though you know that, like, you probably being in 1912, like, I don't really know. I wasn't there, so I don't really know what my choice, if I was really RPing the character, would be. But being, like, 2013 Jocelyn, I was just like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, smack!
Well, I think that's sort of supposed to be like in 1912, racism was this big thing that people still did, you know,
Yes.
and I don't know if there was like public beating, and that's the whole thing about Colombia is that it's this raised city, this separate place that sort of existed before the turn of into the 1900s, right? So I would assume that, well, I can't remember as you're walking through Colombia, do you notice this inherent racism as you're walking through it,
Well,
or is this like
yes,
sort of the
there's
first thing you see?
no, and actually, I'm surprised because I felt like it was smacking me over the head with it all the way through until you get to the part where the rebellion is kind of successful. Um, I felt like, I mean, there are signs everywhere. There are people saying things that you would never hear in civilized conversation nowadays, like just words being used. And
Right.
I don't know, when you were walking around, did you actually watch all of the little like movies?
I did, and
Like
it,
solving the Irish problem, and like it wasn't just one specific race. It was like pretty much everyone
yeah.
who was like lower class in the early 1900s. And
Mhm.
like, I mean, all of the groups that experience racism in Bioshock Infinite also experienced it in that time period. Like it was very true to the time period in our actual history. And I think that that is what was so jarring for me, is that in the way that I live and the company that I keep, it's not a part of my everyday life. So
Mhm.
taking my mindset and throwing it back to 1912, I was just like, I almost stopped playing the game. I was just like, I don't see the point of this. I don't like
Mm.
it. It's making me very uncomfortable. And I don't really understand the reason for having this so prevalent in the game. And I understand that there's a rebellion and uprising, and that's awesome. But just in the first like 2 hours, it was really hard to see the point of.
Well, yeah,
Not that I'm saying that racism ever has a point, but
no.
I didn't understand the reason to include it in the game. And I kind of, like, I was saying to Joel, because I really wanted to keep at it, I was like, you know, they're really good storytellers. They must be going somewhere with this, but I'm finding it really, really difficult to make it through that, like, just past that hurdle, you know?
Right. I can see that. It didn't really bother. I mean, racism is an awful thing, but when you put yourself in the mindset of this separate city, the 19 you're in 1912. The city is run by a crazy dictator
Religious
who,
fanatic, we should say.
yes,
Religious
religious
fanatic,
fanatic, and
and
it's not
white
surprising that this
supremacist
happened.
as well.
Exactly. Like this is like if we're putting it into context, like one of the the bigger ones that we know about, like World War II and the Holocaust and stuff. That was like one of the biggest
That was 30
race.
years after when this game took
Exactly.
place.
So what
Yeah,
I'm saying
so
is it's 30 years after, and I'm not surprised that this is something that's going on. I don't think they really they could have pushed it in your face a lot more. Like I'm glad that there was only one where it was like thrown in your face to kind of like introduce you to like this is a bad city. A lot of the people who live here have sort of these weird views on people. Like you're in that lower class section for maybe a couple hours of gameplay, and it really lays it on thick that like this city has like no respect for
well,
these
I
lower
mean, like,
class
and
citizens.
there are, to the point where there's like washrooms for colored people only, and then white only washrooms, and you know, there's
Oh
all that segregation, and everything
yeah,
else is prevalent throughout. And you
but that
can
existed. That
Oh
happened.
yes,
There,
yes. I'm
yeah.
not saying it didn't happen, and that's what one of
Mhm.
the things that I mentioned to Joel is I was saying, you know, like it's good in a way that I am glad that the medium that we enjoy so much in video games is taking these issues and keeping them in our kind of headspace, you know, reminding 2013 Jocelyn that these things happen, you know, that this happened,
Hmm.
and, you know, keeping you kind of aware of what's going on in a medium that is extremely relevant today, you
Yeah.
know? So, because I
And,
mean, not everybody pays attention in history class. Like, there are so many things that, you know, I can't remember dates and events, and especially since it was such a huge thing in the States with the North South and all that kind of stuff. And I do realize the Civil War was, you know, way before that, but, you know, like 1863, not that far away from 1912, really. And that was, you know, the Civil War and Lincoln and all that kind of stuff. Slavery, everything was only like 50 years before when this game took place. So when you kind of put it in that context, it's really good to
mhm.
remember your history in a
Well, I
way
mean,
that's relevant to younger gamers who, I mean, like, I remember all of that stuff because I was a history major for a couple of years, but, you know, like a 16 or 17-year-old may not pick that up in school. I don't know. So,
but important to. I don't think it was. It never bothered me because, like you, I was heavily involved in history, especially in high school, and we learned about all this. And I'm interested in it. I want us to remember that this stuff took place. And I mean, all the way up until into the '60s in the States and around the world, like there was a lot of problems. You know, the Martin Luther King stuff, and I don't know the proper terms for the movement, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's
yes, yeah.
racism is didn't die in 1913, a year
Yeah.
after this game was put out. So, but I thought it was. I don't think it was in there. Some people might see it and be like, "Oh, this is in here to shock me." Oh, you know, like
That's
the
how that is
colored and
totally how
Irish
I
people
felt.
bathroom. You know, like
That is completely how I felt for the first
that's
few
how you
hours
felt.
until
I,
the between that and the violence, especially that happens in that opening scene, because you get
Mhm.
your sky hook, and everyone has seen pictures because I mean they were talking about how awesome it is that you get this hook thing that you can totally ride the rails and it's going to be this big cool mechanic, and it was, but you could also smash people's heads in with it, which was
Right.
extremely gory, and it was the first thing that you do when you get into a combat situation in Bioshock Infinite.
You don't even shoot or shock somebody. And let me say that
You push
there,
someone's face into a spinning blade.
yeah, and again, like violence as well. Violence has never really got to me in video games, and I think yeah, they probably didn't need to have it so over the top. But I love in this game that when you do something that's really disturbing and disgusting, you just hear Elizabeth go, ugh, ugh, ugh. You remember
Oh,
that
is
in the
that what she
background?
was doing?
She like every time I would grab a guy and do a finisher with the skyhook, all I hear in the background is Elizabeth going, just being disgusted with what I
Which is
just
really
did.
funny because then she goes back to her funny, quippy self, you know, where she's, oh, do you want me to unlock that for you? Okay.
I'm not gonna do that. That's so easy. That's not what she's like. That was
No, no, I'm definitely making her out to be more ditzy than she is. She's actually quite a strong female character, which you don't often see so prevalent.
I've been playing Tomb Raider, and I want more. Again, it feels weird when a guy says, "I want more video games with girl main characters, women main characters, strong female characters."
Mm-hmm.
And most people are like, "Oh, you just want more, you know, boobies in your video game." No.
DNA!
Yeah, I wasn't gonna go quite there, but I like strong characters
Yes.
of either
And
sex. I
it's
think
nice
Elizabeth's
when they're
great.
balanced like that, you know, that you can have strong characters and weak characters of either sex. It's awesome. So, yeah, Elizabeth, like I was being bitchy there. She's not actually a huge ditz. Like
No.
she has a very, she can go from being disgusted at your violent act to very chipper and happy to unlock a door for you like that. Like it's not even a
Yeah.
thing.
There's a point where you like totally piss her off, and then seconds, and it's a video game, it's scripting. You think maybe they'd put a boolean in there that says like, "You just pissed this Elizabeth character off. Play pissed off. I'm gonna unlock this," or just don't have her say anything. I think there was a bug in it at one point where I had pissed her off. Maybe it wasn't a bug, maybe it was programmed, but she didn't say. I told her to unlock it, and she's just like walks over and does it and doesn't say anything. So it's like,
Oh.
oh, okay, that's a nice touch. But yeah, there are points where her mood,
Really,
switches.
it's really stark, you know, very
But
quick
again,
changes.
like these are like nitpicky
Oh yes,
scripting,
totally,
and
totally, yeah.
there is a lot in there. I mean, if you look into the way they developed this game, I really wish they would have done what's the word? What's the Jeff Keighley does these behind the scenes. He actually did Tomb Raider. I really wish he would have done Bioshock Infinite. I don't know if you remember when he did the Mass Effect app last year. I'm trying to think what they're called. They have a specific name. Anyways, I wish there would have been a huge behind the scenes on this game because it would have been fascinating. But what they did was, as they were developing the game, they had the voice actors come in and develop the characters, like write the lines with Ken as he was developing the game and the characters. Like they
Right,
didn't just have a
right.
huge script and have them read it. It's really interesting the way this, and that's probably why it took 6 years for this game to come out. You know, um, and
So
yeah,
one of the big things that it influences everything that's going on, it influences the story, it influences the combat, it influences who Booker and Elizabeth are as characters, is the fact that this is multiple universe land, which at first I was totally on board with because I was just like, okay, there's, it's very fringe. There is universe 1, there is universe 2, and, like obviously Elizabeth is from universe 1 but grew up in universe 2, and you kind of figure that out, or at least I did, very soon on, that she's not actually from the universe where she grew up.
right.
You get that very quickly. But then,
It's
I mean,
yeah,
like, I got so lost when they, after, when they were doing all the gunsmith stuff and kind of discovering the multiple universes, and then with when you kind of get to the gunsmith and you're like, oh, we're not going to be able to carry all this equipment. Let's go to universe number 3. Maybe it's back at the gun shop. And I was kind of like,
yeah.
okay. And
There
then all
is
of a
yeah.
sudden the gunsmith is dead again. And it just like kind of, the whole storyline just went on this whole tangent, and I couldn't really tell if they were back in their original spot or not. And then you were just like, wait, but now the rebellion has guns, so it's not the original one, but aren't we trying to get back there, guys? Like, it just felt it got very confusing very quickly. And I
Yeah.
don't I mean, multiple universes is right up there with time travel and paradoxes, and it's one of those things where you're just like, JJ, I feel like you're touching all my things. And
You bastard.
I know that he had nothing to do with this. Like, he didn't write this game, but I mean, oh my God, it felt like Lost in Fringe had a baby.
You know what? Let's do it. Let's call JJ out right now because there's a lot of games that I'm playing that are, and Lost is a great thing, but not in so many numbers. Like Tomb Raider is sort of connected to Lost. Fire Emblem has time travel where your kids come back and you get married, and then a mission shows up where you have to recruit your kid. And now like Bioshock Infinite, it's like, and you're right, it's like totally a Bioshock game, and then you get to the point where, oh, we can travel through space and time to go to a time when the guy's still alive so we can get the guns and we can jump back. That makes sense. Let's do
Yes.
it. And then it's like within 2 hours, you're like, oh, it doesn't work. Jump. Oh, that's not going to work. Jump. And then all of a sudden you're like 3 layers deep.
Yeah.
And it's
And
not one of
there's
those,
no
you know,
going back, and you're just kind of like, wait, what? So I there's a point there right after you jump into the third universe with the whole gunsmith thing, and then you find him and his wife dead this time, because why not?
great.
And you're just like, okay, so what is my objective now? Like, what are we trying to do? And I felt like for that couple of hours in the middle there, I totally lost what Booker and Elizabeth were trying to do.
I was lost too. I'm right there with you. Like I was confused. Like I know this is a video game, so I'm just gonna keep pushing forward, and I'm
Yes,
sure eventually I'll
the
get it.
computer will tell me what my objective is, but I felt that they were so good with storytelling, and then they just kind of stopped, and it just kind
Eh,
of got, if you just keep walking forward, then the story will kind of develop itself. But they didn't even say that they were lost. It was just kind of like, we should go to the factory next. And I was like, why? Like,
Yeah.
what are we trying to accomplish? Are we still going to Paris? Because I like Paris and I want to go there.
Yeah, and I like your choice of words where you say they just stopped because I don't feel personally like they dropped the ball. I just feel like they're like, if we give them even a sliver of information, they're gonna unravel
The whole
pretty much.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why like as I was going through, I was and that's why it's so great because I was confused through the and through the last half of the game, I was confused, and then the
Pretty much
last
the whole time.
last 20 minutes is just like it it made my jaw drop. I don't think there's been a game where I was just like, what's it? You know, I made that sound.
I don't think I
I'm
actually made that sound, but I just like it was I don't know. So there I want to talk about characters for just a second
sure.
here because I mean before we get too far into it talking about the ending. I mean the like I said, the racism and the classism kind of it doesn't work itself out, but it takes an interesting direction in that this third universe that you're in, somehow the rebels have acquired guns and they've pretty much taken over the city. So that is kind of the turning point where Columbia gets really dark because it's in the middle of an uprising. It's very everything's kind of on fire. There's smoke everywhere, so the sun's gone and it's very dark and there's bodies everywhere because the lower class has risen up and pretty much decimated anyone who
Right.
was like upper class.
Yeah, well, that was basically uh, a universe where the gun contract wasn't canceled with the manufacturer, and then the rebels got their guns. Like, it has nothing
Right.
to do with DeWitt giving them
Oh
the
yes, no,
guns.
no, I know. But then see the
Yeah.
other thing is that the DeWitt in that timeline had met up and joined Slate and then led the rebellion and then died. And then so that causes all of the rebels to then turn on Booker because they're just like, well, you were our hero and our martyr and you're supposed to be dead, so clearly you must be, and I never really understood what who they thought I was. Because they kept
Hmm.
calling me Comstock at some point, and I was just like, well, I don't get that because I'm clearly not 80. So, you know,
Oh, yes.
like I found that very confusing because I was like, dudes, I'm your martyr. I'm on your side. Oh, you're shooting at me. Oh, stop that. I really don't want to shoot you in the face. Fine.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It was weird how sort of your enemies shifted
A
because it,
lot.
yeah, like, yeah. And I mean, I understand it would be very boring. There are some combat issues that I have with this game. The one being the three-tiered boss battle you do. I thought that was probably the my least favorite part of the game.
Three-tiered boss battle. What's that?
Lady Comstock, when you're like she turns into a ghost.
Oh my God. Okay.
That was my
I'm
least favorite part of the
That is
entire
so
game.
funny because that's later on in my notes as one of my favorite video game moments of life ever. So
What? I
I
want to
know.
hear this. Maybe you got a good reason, and
Yeah,
I'm
so
just
that's a little bit later on. So first I just
sure.
want to quickly mention the twins, who I really liked. So I can't actually remember. I think they were Robert and Rosalind or
Yeah,
Rosalie. I can't remember.
Robert and Rosalind, and they're actually well, they're not. I guess you could say they're twins, but
Well, yes, they're not actually twins. They
they're like
are different
universes.
incarnations of each
Yeah,
other. In one universe, one happens to be a female, and in the other universe, that same person happened to be a male. Because that's the idea of the multiple universes is that most things are constant with small variables. So little things change and then multiply over time, and you get all of these infinite universes. So one of
right.
the things that was different, and they ended up making all of the same choices, and so ending up in the same place and able to talk to each other through universes because they were researchers and physicists.
And then they got like
Then they made a
stuck.
portal, and then they, yeah.
Then they've been jumping around,
Yeah.
and those were probably my favorite characters in the game, where they just sort of show up out of nowhere in these. Sometimes I didn't even realize they were the ones rowing you at the very start of the game
I didn't
until
realize that
they
either.
flashed back like twice.
Yeah, and they're like, oh,
I'm like, oh
okay.
yeah, because that was the constant, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't really realize that. Even when I got into the city, I guess you weren't really paying attention because it was like, oh, look at the tower, you know.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I wasn't paying attention at the very beginning. I was just like, okay, I want to go, 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 go. You know, okay, rowing me, yeah, whatever. However I got here, I don't even care. Just let me get to the sky.
although
So,
it probably should have been tipped off by the way they talk to you, because
yeah.
they do the same sort of back and forth thing.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, they show up a lot. They help you. Actually, yeah, they definitely help the whole way through. they're kind of like almost like guardian angel type characters.
Doesn't feel like they help.
No, but they give you very specific and interesting pieces of information. They give you the song for the songbird. I mean, sometimes they just confuse you, like making you pick between the bird and the cage for Elizabeth's choker, and heads or tails. It's like, well, who cares? It's at random,
Yeah.
But sometimes they offer very interesting information about what you're going to need in your upcoming fight, or what's going on, or where the story's going. Like they fill in a whole lot of holes,
Mm.
between them actually telling you things and then all of the recordings that you find. They really flesh out the story, and they're very small supporting characters in that they don't show up very often. Like the actual time that they're in the game, if you add it all up, is probably 10 minutes maybe,
Yeah, not very long. They're in there. They
but
come
they
in
are
snippets.
so important.
Mhm.
And I think
Well,
it was
they're
a
sort of the orchestrator of the whole
yes.
thing.
Yeah. Which I also kind of didn't understand, and I'm really hoping that I can kind of turn it over my head because I did just finish it a couple hours ago. So
You got to read that diagram.
I know, so, which is what we should probably mention. We would throw it in the chat room right now, except for the A move slash
Oh, Amu's
Twitch.
back up now.
Oh, it's still not working for me. It's still thinking. But anyways, if anyone is there, and then Ryan can throw the link in the chat room because apparently it's working for him, but it's not working for me. So, but there is a link to a image, which is basically a timeline of Bioshock Infinite with all the different universes and everything else. And it's confusing. I haven't read it yet, but Ryan says it just explains and makes everything clear. So that's awesome because
Well,
I was like, multiple universes.
it explains the timeline and just like I mean, it's really hard to do a perfect multi-universe story, especially when there's like three timelines with different deviations of the first one, and the story writers here really did a fantastic job in making sort of a parallel universe story. It's impossible to make a perfect one because there's just so many different like layers, but I think they really once you kind of figure it out, and if you can probably piece this together yourself if you were to play through again or just really pay attention to what's going on because it is a video game and you're kind of like, all right, when am I going to shoot stuff next? No, no, stop talking. I want to blow this guy's head off.
Which is really funny because that's not how I played. I was literally like running around and being like, okay, I'm looking. Oh man, I have to blow somebody else's head off. Oh, fine.
So did you do all
Okay,
the
back to my
optional
little thing.
missions?
I did. I did
Oh,
everything.
okay.
Yeah, everything I could.
I missed a
Everything I could
couple of the
find.
optional ones because it kept saying go to the gameplay menu, and I'm like, what's the gameplay menu? They never tell you how to get to it. And I'm on a mouse and keyboard, so it's like, oh, it's the O key. It's
Of
like
course.
great. Of course, it's the O
Oh,
key.
for gameplay. Hello.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know, but it was weird. I think I missed the first two optional missions, and then I realized like, oh, if you go to the gameplay, you can actually set your navigator to where the optional mission is. But anyways, I really enjoyed the parallel universe thing. I thought it was great, and I totally missed like I don't listen to the Beach Boys, but again, back to the opening. There's that cover of a Beach Boys title,
Oh,
like
okay. Could have been.
acapello. Do you remember that when they're singing
No.
acapello? You don't remember that? You
No.
must have missed
I
it.
was I was totally waiting for people to start shooting at me, and you can totally tell when you walk into that first auction thing, you're just like, this is an ambush and a half.
Yeah, I guess there's this big. I've been seeing online a lot. There's a big story about around the music. Like all the music that
Mm.
takes place in the game is covers of like recent music. And I guess what was happening was there's a whole optional mission where um, you find out that this guy behind all the music, the music author, writer, or whatever,
Mhm.
has been going into the future and stealing
Oh,
music.
yes, yes.
I missed that side mission. I was kind of pissed off at myself that I
I
didn't dig
didn't
into it.
actually I didn't actually do that side mission, so you're right, I must have missed a couple because I think I ended up missing like 5 of the recordings and then probably 6 or 7 of the sightseer things, so the telescopes or the little movies.
Yeah.
So obviously I did miss some stuff because I was combing that place top to bottom to try to find everything. And one of the recordings is Fink talking about how the tears were allowing this guy to get the music and saying, I don't know where it's coming from, but this is awesome and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. So
Well,
um,
it kind of showcased itself when I think Elizabeth started to pull tears out, and she did this one tear where you could hear "Fortunate Son" in the background, which
mm,
sort of triggered me to think like, "What the hell? Like that music sounds like it's from, the '90s or '80s or whenever
yeah,
that song came out." It was just really cool in the way
yeah.
they I thought it's like, are they trying to integrate this into the real world? Because I'm pretty sure we don't have a flying city. So,
Yeah, I was a little bit worried there
yeah.
too when they were talking about Paris and then songs that actually exist. And I'm kind of like, okay, wait. Again, it was another one of those moments where I was just like, whoa, wait, okay, where are you going with this? Because pull it back, guys. Just pull it back.
Don't jump the shark here.
Yeah. So, but one thing that we haven't really mentioned much, which is the combat.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I felt that, and actually, there was a tweet on Twitter
Damn twit.
by the developer that made Braid.
Hmm.
Do you know his name off the top of your head? Because I can't remember his name.
Jonathan Blow.
Him.
Hmm.
And he basically, there was probably about 3 or 4 tweets that put all together were just nailed it on the head, and it was the shield mechanic in not just Bioshock, but it's really highlighted in Bioshock, kind of breaks combat. It makes you getting hit not as meaningful because you have a regenerating shield. And I found the combat often was really chaotic, and not
Mm.
chaotic in a good way, because I felt that no matter where I stood or what I did, I couldn't really develop any kind of a strategy,
Hmm.
because I didn't even know, like, there were always people coming at you from all directions. And I felt even moving around, even using the skyline, like, it didn't seem to matter what I did. There were always people that seemed to show up and be right in my face. And I don't know if that was to drive your melee or what, but I felt that the combat was really chaotic and made it very, very difficult for me to enjoy that part of the game. I loved the exploration, I loved the story, I loved the graphics, but the combat itself, I kind of wish that I didn't have a shield, and maybe that's what 1999 mode is for. Is to make you play slowly and strategically, but I kind of wish that the game was just that way and that there wasn't
Yeah.
this like easy button.
I don't know. I can't really remember the first Bioshock very well, but I remember the second Bioshock being chaotic as well. Like it sort of just swarms you, and I think I mean all games can't be everything, right? And I think as much as I said they put gameplay and narrative on the same level, I actually enjoyed the combat in the sense of for what it was. It was a chaotic sort of like I have special powers, and I think the shield just kind of helps you gives you a chance to figure out where people are coming from before dying. Because I don't know what difficulty you played on, but I played on hard,
Hmm.
and I was dying often, just because I would get one guy behind me, and it really encourages you to mix up your powers so you can sort of crowd control. Because if you don't, which is why I hated that three-tiered boss with where she kept rezzing people, and I'm like, I don't have enough mana. Come on, guys. And I'm just yelling at the screen here. And it really encourages you to manage, the people that are coming at you. And when you don't, you get swarmed and you die and
Hmm.
you res and the damn girl just regenerated. It was awful. But I enjoyed the combat, but I see where you're coming from where in a perfect world, the BioShock game would be, would be a calculated sort of combat. Like, can you think of a game that you would like it to be like in terms like
I
maybe
don't
Mass
know.
Effect, I
I like
guess?
maybe kind of. I kind of basically what I feel it was missing was I wish there were less enemies that
Mm.
hit harder and I didn't have a shield. Like I wouldn't want all of my enemies to hit harder because there were too many of them coming at you from all directions, which sometimes made sense and sometimes just totally didn't. And I
Right.
was just kind of like, you know what? I've already cleared everything behind me. Like, where are you coming from? And it was just like they were literally just regenning out of air. And I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense with multi universes and tears and crap, but that's not what it was meant to be? So I just feel like in
I
general it was, and I know that like previous BioShock was chaotic in a way, and I just feel like this was that one step too far. That's all.
Okay. And
Um,
again, it's minor, I assume minor thing for
Oh
you in
yes,
terms
minor
of
thing because like we were saying or like you just brought up the whole siren fight with Lady Comstock when she is resurrected, she becomes a siren and then she resurrects all of these dead bad guys around her, right?
Mhm.
So that level was probably my favorite video game moment level ever. Like
Why?
it's definitely up there because I loved like I played with headphones on because I was trying to like Joel is thinking that he's gonna play it, so I didn't want to
Right.
spoil anything, right? So I'm playing with headphones on, and it just like there's the ghostly whispers going on, there's the footprints, you kind of, there's not a whole lot of actual combat except for when you're fighting her.
Hmm.
And then you learn these like huge moments and huge plot points, and you're just
Oh
kind
yeah.
of going around and exploring. It's very haunting, and the like I said, the graphics are awesome. They really match the mood and set the mood of the level. And you don't really like, I went through and killed everything first just by accident because I was trying to figure out how to get into the lab, because I was just like, oh, I totally want to go to there, obviously. Like that's probably, there's probably a really cool, you know, like a recording in there or some gear or something, and there's a lock on it that looks just like all the ones that Elizabeth has been opening, so clearly I have to get in there. And I was trying to figure it out, and I walked all the way around like 3 times and killed everyone.
Hmm.
So, you know, I didn't have a lot of combat when I was following her footprints and, you know, revealing all that stuff in the story.
Hmm.
So when I actually did the boss battles, like she was the most difficult boss, I think.
Hmm.
And it was nice. It was that kind of contrast between haunting and poignant and then difficult combat. You know, like just that whole experience. And then at the end with the exchange between her and Elizabeth and talking about the whole mother-daughter thing, and the mother being angry and why, and the daughter being angry and why, and you know, like just that whole exchange that happens at the end right before she blasts open the gate so that you can progress was just, it was perfect. It was really perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I agree with you about everything on that. Like the only thing I hated about it was, and I know I was defending the combat before, but I guess it's not the combat. It's more like the setup of
Her
the boss
power.
battle,
Yeah.
her pattern, yeah, where it just doesn't explain it very well. And I'm curious, what difficulty did you play? Did you play normal or hard?
I actually played on easy because I wanted to get through the story
Oh,
so fast. But I started on hard,
maybe
and
that's the
then
difference then, because
probably, yeah.
yeah, because in hard it felt like she would constantly respawn
Yeah.
these units, right? And I
Um,
couldn't figure out, am I doing something wrong? Am
I
I supposed to
literally,
kill
I
them
had
faster?
to, I was on hard and I had to bump it down to easy because I had to get through that first couple hours fast enough with all of the, like I was saying earlier, the racism and everything else. I had to get through that and get to a meaningful story. I had to get far enough so that
Mm.
I could get over that hurdle. So I had to get through that content really fast. And then when I realized how fast I could play through it, I was just like, okay, if I keep it on easy, then I don't have to spend a lot of time doing the combat, which was my least favorite part of the game. And then I knew I would be done for tonight, and then we could have our spoiler cast. Yay!
Mm.
So
I
I kept it
enjoyed
on
it
easy.
on hard.
I will
I just
probably go back and I will play it through on either hard or 1999 mode. I don't know. Do you get all the cascading things if you play it through on 1999 mode? Do you know all the achievements?
I'm not sure, but
I would assume so.
yeah, good achievement design in the past has stated if you play on a certain mode, it will unlock all the previous ones.
Yeah.
I know when I played on hard, it unlocked all the previous ones. So
Yes.
1999 mode should be the
That's like
same.
ultra difficulty.
Yeah, but you're right. Like the story moments with the 3 tears, I thought I was like, oh great, a mission where I have to collect 3 things. Awesome.
I
But
at first I read it, even though you've had tears through the whole thing, I thought it was 3 tears because she was
I
so
did too.
sad and that they were like little diamonds or something. And I'm
Yeah,
just
I'm
like,
thinking like Legend of Zelda. Oh, okay,
yes,
ruby
3
tears.
jewels,
You
okay.
know. But I kept hearing myself say tears for some reason. But I love how like it was a fetch quest, but you were fetching information.
Yes.
It was
See?
great. It was
Yeah.
great. I agree. Like that whole section there was really awesome. I think it was just for me on
Plus, that
hard
was
mode. It was
that
sort of
was
just
right before the story started to kind of go funky and hard to follow, like really hard to follow. Like there was that drop in the middle where no one really knew what was going on. But then, I mean, like once you
which
kind of
drop?
get into, huh? The one we
Which
talked
drop?
about before, after you get to the gunship and or gunsmith, and then into the third universe, and then nobody knows what to do. There's really no reason. It's just go to the factory.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
that
like, I
drop that we were talking about.
must have missed the dubstep moment. Where it's
Drop.
like, yeah, like,
Anyways,
stupid.
we
That was
should never do
stupid.
that again.
No, I mean the dubstep version of the Gamers Inn theme we'll use next week. If someone wants to do a dubstep version of the Gamers Inn theme, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it probably would.
But
Anyways,
yeah.
yeah, so then after you kind of get into Comstock's house is when things just start to go weird. Like, there's all kinds of different, like, it's been 6 months. No, it's been 2 minutes. No, it's been 100 years because now Elizabeth is a grandmother. Like,
Welcome to time travel, Jocelyn.
I know.
J.J. Abrams says hi, what up? And then he like walks away and throws a script at you, and then it goes,
I feel like
and it says lost. I
you
don't
would
know.
just like open one of those doors and then it'd just be JJ standing there like,
The ending
sucker.
should have been just like he's just sitting there in his director's chair. And
Yeah.
He's just like, what? Time travel. They all died and went to a church.
Yeah.
Uh,
We're just spoiling all the things now.
it's an old TV show, guys. I
Oh
mean,
man.
it's not my fault that you guys haven't watched the greatest TV show ever. But yeah, I that part lost me as well. I wasn't really sure what was going on.
Yeah.
And again, I hate to we've talked about this before. It's like, Ryan, it doesn't count as a good story if I have to read a Wikipedia article. But in this case, you kind of have to because it is sort of.
I was able to sort of get there while I was playing. I haven't read anything because I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around it on my own first. I've read some things, but they've all been commentary on the themes and the combat and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I have read stuff, but not on like explanations of the story. But yeah, I did find that a little bit because I wasn't sure what was it an orphanage or an insane asylum or something? I couldn't understand. I thought it was Comstock's house, but I think it was Comstock House. So I think it was like, that
thought it
S
too.
makes a big difference. So you go in and there's this like ward and it's like where we learn, where we sleep, where we, all these things. And I was just like, who's we? Like, what is happening?
It was an asylum, basically. I
Yeah,
feel
and that's what old Elizabeth kind of tells you when you get to the end, and you can kind of tell that all of those little tears through while you're walking up and getting all this information and saying, like it's been 6 months or whatever, all of that is her kind of trying to pull you to her so she can give you that message, but she's pretty much out of power, right? Because she's old.
Yeah, and that whole portion when they sort of allude to I had a dream about New York on fire, like, but it was a bigger New York. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And when they kind of show that scene where Columbia is sort of like attacking New York, I felt as I was just like, shut up. New York's on fire, guys. Look at this, and it looked fantastic. It was.
It did,
I mean,
yeah. Even on the
it just
Xbox,
looked really
it did.
great. And I wonder. I kind of feel like I wish I was around in what was it, 1984, and lived in New York to kind of think like that's what New York looked like in 1984. Because I feel like that would have been really cool for them to
Yeah.
sort of draw that parallel. And I wonder if, and again, New York has seen its fair share of tragedies, and I wonder if people sort of felt connected to what they were seeing on screen. I don't know. I mean, I'm not from New York, but
Yeah.
or from the States or something. But I
I
think that would
found
have
New
been
York to be an interesting choice. I would have thought of all the cities that kind of, to me, match that kind of style and feel, I would have picked San Francisco.
Mm.
I don't know about you, but I think that it was interesting that they chose New York, especially when even, I guess in 1912, like, New York would have been the city, like not so much westward expansion has happened and, like it really takes a while for the West Coast to get where it is today. So I can see why they would pick an East Coast city, but it seemed, it was an interesting choice
Well,
given the tragedies in the last, 15 years.
I don't really know where, because they do sort of set up Columbia as being in a specific spot over the states.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember. For some reason, Maine is popping into my head. I can't remember. I think
Everything
at the very
happens in Maine. God damn, now it's J.J. Abrams with Stephen King. Now
Yeah.
we're all just screwed.
I think at the very start they sort of reveal that you're in
I
some
think
sort
it's
of
the
body of
Eastern
water near
Seaboard.
Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it,
so
yeah.
that's probably why they're attacking New York
Yeah,
because it's
true.
the
It's
closest
right
city
there,
to where
yeah.
the city was.
Very, very
Um,
true.
But I thought that whole moment was really cool. Like the set pieces in this game, even if the set pieces are amazing, and sometimes you only see them for. You guys must have spent weeks on this, and I'm only seeing it for like 2 minutes. It's great.
Yeah.
it's just, and there's a lot of those in this game,
Definitely.
for sure.
Yeah, so the ending, I was kind of disappointed, and I found it very odd that you never fought the songbird. You know, like I found,
Yeah,
and again, like we mentioned, I played it on easy difficulty, so but I found that there was the motorized patriot, there was the dude with the kind of sirens out his ears and his mouth, and
did you fight him?
yeah, well, not him, but he basically brings whatever it is, 10 or 15 dudes that you have to kill because he cleanses you of your sins or something. But you
Hmm.
can't actually damage him at all. So there was him, there was the siren who was Lady Comstock, there was the motorized patriot, and the
Hmm.
handyman. And I felt that they weren't used as often as I thought. I felt like I was killing the same guy over and over and over again because it was always guy or girl. There were both men and women in both the rebel force, which were the Vox Populi, as well as the founders, which were kind of the police who followed Comstock, who was the religious fanatic and everything else. I don't think we ever actually said that. So there are both men and women on the police and in the rebels, and you kill them
Great,
all
great.
at one point or another. So
There was a lot of normal dudes that you were
yeah,
fighting.
a lot.
And I, on one side, I liked it because it made the combat like really simple, where I had like gear that would allow me to just shock one guy, kill him, and then that shock would like double across all the rest of the
Hmm.
guys who were still affected, and it sort of just carried on from then. And the only point when I would be forced to switch up my combat was when, oh my God, there's a motorized Patriot, there's a guy in extra armor with a rocket launcher,
Hmm.
and there were some variations on the just the normal dudes where, like I said, they had
Yes,
armor
yeah.
on, or there was a firewalker guy who would,
Oh yeah, the fireman. Yeah, I forgot
yeah.
about him. And he was somewhere in between the regular people and the heavy hitters. Like there was him and the rocket dudes, and there were guys with bull helmets, and and the crows. The crows, the
Oh
guys
yeah, the
that
crows.
disappeared and kind of teleported and stuff, who just seemed like they used too much murder of crows vigor or something. But yeah, I just kind of
Yeah.
felt that overall, I wish that those heavier hitters had been in the game more. Like the fact that you only had the 3 encounters with the siren. I kind of thought that she'd be everywhere. And
Yeah,
you
and I see your point. Like they're sort of setting up the songbird. Like they even say it at one point in the loading screens. It says like, "Is Elizabeth gonna let me kill the songbird
hmm
if I have to?" Like, and I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting prospect." But
hmm
and they sort of set it up as like this is the big daddy of this
yes,
universe, and to not get a chance to sort of quite the opposite. You actually get to interact with the songbird and use it for
as a
a period of
weapon.
time. Yeah, which was really cool.
hmm
Um,
And then,
but
except
yeah,
that when he died, that was so sad, and I didn't understand the point of that.
uh, yeah, I think it was just an unfortunate byproduct of where they went. But
I guess I couldn't really understand. Like, so he goes and he destroys her cage, which is the
mhm,
statue, and the thing that is basically pulling her power out of her and keeping her from exploring all the different universes.
right.
So the songbird goes and destroys that, and then for some reason turns on them.
Uh, he turns on them. Oh, because I guess
Because Booker was like, "Oh my God, he's coming," and she's like, "No, he's not, because he's under the ocean."
I think she said some he said something or she said something. It had something to do with the tower and how they were linked, and then because they destroyed the tower, maybe the songbird saw her as a threat, and that's
Oh
it,
yeah, I don't
and
know.
he's his
It
sort
was
of
kind of
main
odd.
goal is to
Yeah,
it was weird. It was sort of a last minute switcheroo,
yeah.
and at the very and then when they do teleport through, and you're like, I'm pretty sure machines don't need to breathe, guys. And then I realized, oh,
For
we're
the
in
longest
Rapture.
time, I thought that the songbird was actually Lady Comstock. I thought that
Ah.
like because there was a lot of the recordings that said talking about combining man and machine, and clearly they were talking about the handyman. But
Mhm.
I definitely thought that maybe they had kind of that the songbird was the evolution, and that she was like protecting her child, and you never actually see her. Everyone thought she was dead, but really she's the songbird. So That was
Yeah.
my theory, but then it was wrong.
And I think it's another one of those. It's like Bioshock 1 when it's like, oh, what are these things? Well, they're the Big Daddy, and there's no need to explain what they are. They're just a thing that exists.
Yes, and you're right, there wasn't any kind of explanation, and you know me, I like stories, so I like explanations, but it kind of, the songbird was one of those main background characters, it
It was a
was,
robot.
yeah, it was just it was this weird in between, and I kind of wish we'd got more information, but we're running out of time, so we got to speed this up. But
Sure.
we haven't really covered the ending. So what happens is your last big combat moment, like we mentioned earlier, happens. You have this big,
Mhm.
huge, really hard boss battle. And then you still have about an hour of gameplay after that where there's no combat whatsoever, where it's just you and Elizabeth walking through because she's discovered her power. So she can now walk through and open up all the doors to the infinite universes, hence Bioshock Infinite.
But were you not fascinated by what was going on? Because it was sort of at a point where, like,
Oh,
all
yes,
right,
definitely,
we're
yeah.
uncorking this thing, and you're just gonna story all over you.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
you're just going to take it and let us know what you think after.
Whereas during the credits, it's just like, oh, okay, oh, well, that happened, you know. And then they start playing this video, and you're like, come on, guys, shut up! I can't. I'm trying to figure out how
Wait,
this.
there was a video? I didn't actually watch the credits all the
Did
way
you
through.
skip the credit? Why do you do that? They spent 6 years making this masterpiece, and you skip the credits.
Yep.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you what happened.
Well, fine. I'll look it up on
Did you
YouTube.
see the Did you see the post credit scene? You didn't see the post credit scene. Well, at the end, Booker's like, "Oh, we saved the day." No, I'm just kidding. You should look it up. There is a
Yeah.
post credit scene that sort of bookends the game.
So, in the end, after all the
Yes.
combat is done, there are like 10 Elizabeths that basically bring you to the realization that you, Booker, are Comstock. Comstock is Booker. And
In a
then
specific universe, yeah.
the Elizabeths drown you and you die, and apparently that fixes all the things.
And it makes sense.
Really?
Yeah, you really have to sort of. At the end, I'm like, oh, it just happened. She's
Because
my
you
daughter.
killed
I'm
one
Comstock.
Booker.
What's
The fact that she was my daughter, I kind of saw coming. That was not a problem. But the whole me being Comstock thing, I didn't get. And I understand that it's multiple universes and time and space and all that kind of stuff. But
Well, see, this is the big issue I saw because when they said that you were Comstock, the reason you're Comstock is because they sort of introduced it at the beginning where you're at a baptism and
Yes.
and it's sort of playing it off as like, oh, I saw what happened in the Wounded Knee exhibit and
yes.
this is something that happened to you and he said, oh, I couldn't go through with it. I walked away. And that was the DeWitt that existed to father Anna or Elizabeth and get into a gambling debt and so on and so forth. But if he accepted the baptism, he became Comstock. He was abolished of all his sins and was like, all right, I'm going to go and create a floating city where it's going to prosper and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And there's going to be no sin, because he's
No war, yeah.
he's sort of living with a clean slate, right? Where he
Yes.
feels as though, but the real Booker or the one that you play as in the game was like, it doesn't make sense. I can't just have a person put me in water and suddenly I've been forgiven for all these bad things. I mean, he doesn't walk away a better person. He goes and has a daughter and gets a giant gambling debt. So he's not necessarily the best character ever, but he lives with his mistakes that he made, right?
Yes.
And that's the difference and then he ends up selling his daughter to himself. And the reason he looks 80 is because the machine, that you sort of pick it up, the machine sort of affects him in the sense that he becomes sterile, so he has to steal a daughter
Yes.
for an heir. And also it affects his age. It makes him age rapidly.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that at all. So
I missed it too, but evidently it's in there, but very subtle. It's in one of the audio logs.
I was going to say, it must be in an audio log I missed or something, because I definitely picked up the audio log that told me about how he was sterile and everything else, and I was kind of like, yay, okay, I get that. Makes sense. But I didn't understand how, in the end, that Booker could be, how they could be the same person. And I was just like, and even then, it's just like, how do you know you're killing the right Booker? Well, like, what if Booker in Universe 10 is just like, yay, I'm Comstock again? And you're just, damn it, now I have to go kill that guy too. You know, like,
see, that's the thing is they go to the source. Like, Comstock exists because you were baptized. So what they do is, rather than allowing him to be baptized, they just drown him before he gets the baptism. Therefore, Comstock never exists along all the possible universes, right? And that's why you see at the end where all the Elizabeths disappear except for one, the original Anna DeWitt. And you know, the post-credit scene sort of alludes to that fact.
Yeah, see, again, I missed the post-credit scene. Apparently that makes it
Well, Ken Levine is just super upset with you right now.
I know, he should be. But...
And I find it funny that they do tie key plot and narrative to you watching 20 minutes of credits. I think that's great.
I was going to watch it, but then I had to come prep the show. And
I'm not blaming you. I agree. I was watching it at like 2 in the morning. I'm like, come on, guys. This pop is going right through me. I got to go to the bathroom, you know.
I have to sleep.
I'll sleep. And, you know, and basically you wake up. Do you want me to tell you what happens?
Yes.
Okay, you wake up, you're in your office again. It doesn't look much different from your dream sequences or when you die and you revive in your office, but you hear baby music. And I can't believe I missed this before when you're in the office, but there's the side door where the crib is, and you go in through the side door, and your character walks towards the crib, and you still hear the baby music, and it cuts to black just as you get to the edge of the crib.
Okay.
So it alludes to the fact that you basically hit a big reset button. Comstock, it never happens. You're back in the original timeline. Anna is still with you, and hopefully you don't incur a giant gambling debt. So it's sort of this nice neat package.
It's the time traveling space, multiple universes. I don't know. I just
read the diagram really helps.
I know that there's a diagram, but I feel like
it's not cheating.
So tricky, and it's a little bit cheating.
No, it's not, because really what it's doing is you have all that information. It's just organizing it and putting, here's your giant thought bubble, and putting it here where it should be, you know, because it's all there. You played the game. I feel as though, like, once I read through it, it's like,
oh, no, I don't mean the diagram is cheating. I mean the whole,
no.
reset and time travel and paradoxes and all that kind of stuff is just kind of like, I don't know.
It's story.
How does his daughter drown him if she was never there to guide him through? And, you know, like, and how did they know that that's the right guy? And it just, anyways. I know.
Game. I didn't think about that. Oh, no, I don't know how that works, but I think that's why he's underwater and he lets them drown him. So I think at a certain point they start disappearing as he's drowning because he's dying. And then when he finally dies, I don't know, time.
So then if they just hadn't disappeared, they all would have just looked at each other and gone, shit, wrong guy. Okay, next universe.
I don't know. To be honest, I really don't know. And to be even more honest, I don't think we'll ever find out. Like, this is sort of a game where it took so long to develop that there won't be a direct sequel. There's a reason that Ken Levine and Irrational Games didn't create Bioshock 2. You know, they don't want to do a direct sequel. There is supposed to be story DLC, but I highly doubt it being a direct continuation. It might just be, you know, like, let's explore the timeline where you're the martyr and see what happened there. You know, I think that'd be interesting.
That probably is, you know, that would be a really good DLC, is exploring a different timeline. It kind of, with the multiple universes, it kind of opens it up for whatever DLC you want to do, and you can just say, this is happening at this point in time, and it totally makes sense, because we're just showing you another universe, you know? It's not quite the same as dropping DLC in the middle of, say, Mass Effect, where there's one storyline in one time, and, you know, like, this multiple universes definitely lends itself to DLC. So, I think, are we pretty much done with Bioshock spoilers?
Before we finish spoilers, I want to say one more thing. Just get quick reaction. When you went to Rapture, were you not, oh my god, this is awesome?
Yes. Once I realized they weren't going to stay there and be the
Oh.
founders of like the whole rapture movement or something weird and kinky, I was just like
You're just worried they're gonna George Lucas it, you know? Like you're so wrecked by the prequels to the Star Wars films that you just think everything's a bad
everything's
idea.
a bad prequel.
And I had the opposite reaction where I saw it and I had to quit as soon as I got there because I had to get ready for work in the morning. And I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. There's gonna be a whole level in Rapture, and I knew they were gonna do something like this. This is so great, but I have to go. And it was really like 15 minutes of just walking.
It was really it wasn't even 15 minutes, dude. It was probably like 2. It was really short. You kind of
Which,
end up in the first room and then you walk through a door and you take the
right, the yellow or the
bath
caps up.
thermometer thingy, the capsule, and it kind of like floats up and shows you all of Rapture, and you kind of go, "Oh, Rapture," and you have a little moment, and
Yeah.
then the story continues, and then there's another lighthouse type thing, and then you go through that lighthouse, and it brings you to the land of the infinite lighthouses.
Yeah.
Which apparently is another universe. It's like there's a universe full of shrimp, there's a universe full of lighthouses, and then there's a universe full of chairs.
And they sort of wrecked. I feel like they sort of wrecked future titles in this series because it's like once you've done this whole introduce the multiple universe, it's really hard to have another concrete title because you can't do that reveal again.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do next.
Maybe it'll just be Elizabeth walking around. Today I'm going to go through Lighthouse 42. And then that's a
Bioshock
game.
6. We're going to Paris, finally.
It's about damn time.
About time.
So, I don't know. Do you want, we are way over time. We kind of got to skip. I think we should just skip our topic this week and talk about it next week because it is not something that I want to rush through. We
Yeah.
were going to talk about Disney closing LucasArts, but I think that that's just such a huge topic with all of our, all the layoffs that have been happening in the game industry right now. I really think that we need to delay that for a week, and especially since we are now about an hour and 15 minutes into the show. So we are going to do a super quick fire news, and then I think wrap it up. But first, I wanted to say that Ryan and I really appreciate your continued support of our show, along with the support of our sponsor, Doghouse Systems. So if you use the code TheGamersIn to double your RAM when you purchase a new gaming rig, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, but 16 does not become 32, because that would be Bioshock Infinite level of insanity. Cannot have infinite RAM. Anyways, head on over to doghousesystems.com and get your order on.
All right, quick fire. Doom 4 development has been rebooted. John Carmack of id Software originally announced Doom 4 in 2007. Fast forward 6 years later, and we haven't seen more than a logo and some leaked concept art. Well, it turns out there's a valid reason for that. Troubled development. Making the game was so rocky that work was completely scrapped. If it was completed, we'd have it by now. Was completely scrapped and restarted in late 2011, which publisher Bethesda has confirmed this week. Along with this reset, it is also rumored that plans for a Rage 2 were cancelled, having the whole company focusing on Doom 4. Sadly, though, it seems to be only bad news for Doom 4 today, as there is still no word on when it will actually launch.
Zynga launches real money gambling. In an effort to reinvigorate their stock prices after a really bad year, Zynga has again outdone themselves in the innovation department. They have come up with the real money online gambling system, specifically poker. Wait, that already had its heyday way back in the early 2000s. Launched this week in the UK, Zynga began their move away from social gaming and into becoming an online real money casino. Can we stop paying attention to them now?
Look at me, look at me. GameStop CEO likes the new Xbox. Oh my God. You know all those always online Xbox rumors that would kill secondhand games? Well, it seems GameStop is calling BS. CEO of GameStop, J. Paul Rines, has been spending a lot of time with Microsoft and says their new console will be a very hot, compelling device. Rines went on to say that it's his words, not mine. Rines went on to, even though it sounds like Ryan, Rines went on to say that digital only is a bad idea, as customers will want both options going forward this generation, as they're just not ready to go massively digital yet. Also, as if GameStop was designing the next Xbox themselves, they threw a shot in at streaming games, saying every streaming product has failed so far. And Ryan's is also skeptical of the product after the recent events surrounding other cloud gaming companies like OnLive. Once again, this is all talk with no facts to back it up, as Microsoft is still being very quiet about their next console.
Finally revealed why no one in Fire Emblem has feet. I know this has been driving Ryan nuts. In a recent interview, 84, who is responsible for translating the game into English, asked Nintendo's developers why on earth the characters were created without feet when the rest of the character design is perfectly normal. Turns out it's all in the system capabilities and animation requirements. At the beginning of the project, they weren't sure how many bones and joints they would be able to animate given the CPU strength. The 3DS more than delivered on the power needed to process the animations with feet, but by that time they were too far along to go back and add them, so they just ran with it, saying, "If there's a next time, maybe there'll be more ankles."
Game development. What up? A lot of J.J. Abrams coming in here. Microsoft exec doesn't get drama behind Always Online. A creative director at Microsoft Studios named Adam Orth has taken to Twitter to calm people down over the Always Online requirement for the next Xbox. Because, telling people to deal with it is a great calming method. Anyways, Kotaku posted a report from multiple sources that the next Xbox will almost certainly require an active internet connection to start a game or app. And if connection is lost after 3 minutes, the game or app will be suspended to display a network troubleshooter. When Adam saw this, he started his Twitter rant with, "I don't understand the drama around having an always-on console. Every device now is always on. That's the world we live in. Deal with it." This prompted a few SimCity and Diablo 3 responses, and after the media got a hold of his tweets, he locked his profile. Adam's comments are so widespread, he's earned his own meme gallery with such greats as, "I'm always connected to the internet, so I can fuck my career using Twitter whenever I want to." There's a whole gallery. We'll put the link in the notes, and some of them are creative, so.
The first free DLC for SimCity is an ad. The first DLC has been released for SimCity, and it's almost more of a joke than the game itself. Not only is it free, but it's practically an auto-win button that will only be available for 6 months. The DLC is a Nissan Leaf charging station with a huge red Nissan logo that can be seen from any zoom level. The charging station produces no pollution or sewage, as well as using no workers, no water, and no electricity, because that makes perfect sense. It also provides a significant boost in happiness to all people in the vicinity, meaning that you can boost happiness everywhere without the cost to your city, except for the original cost of the building, and of course, your soul.
Poop Town, brought to you by Nissan. Activision lets go Deadpool devs. With development complete on the new Deadpool game at High Moon Studios, Activision has let go 40 full-time employees. Activision Publishing consistently works to align its costs with its revenue. This is an ongoing process, Activision said in a statement provided to Kotaku. "We are taking a reduction in staff at High Moon Studios to better align our development talents against our slate." High Moon Studios still has their main dev staff, no doubt working on a new Transformers game.
Which Joel is playing and totally loving, by the way. The second one, not the third one, because that would be crazy.
Well, the third one's not out yet, or hasn't
Which is
even
why
been
it
announced.
would be so crazy.
Unless he went into an infinite timeline.
Oh my god!
Mm-hmm.
Amazon hates Nintendo. For the past 2 years, the relationship between Amazon and Nintendo has been curious, given that the online retailer does not sell Nintendo consoles firsthand, but rather handles the transaction for you through a third party, despite selling the PlayStation 3 and Xbox firsthand. Neither Nintendo or Amazon will say why this is, but it seems the animosity has reached a new level. Amazon is now actively recommending that consumers check out the Microsoft and Sony alternatives when a customer loads the Nintendo console page. If you go to the PS3 or Xbox 360 page, no such recommendation for competitors exists. It is such a puzzling situation that Kotaku has reached out to their community to see if anyone knows what's going on. Although if they've managed to keep it under wraps for 2 years, I doubt we'll hear anything from anyone anytime soon. Which is the end of Quickfire News and the end of our show. So if you would like to visit us on the web, you can do so at gamersinpodcast.com, or you can also email us with your comments on Bioshock Infinite at info@gamersinpodcast.com. You can find us on AMove TV every Friday night at 8:30 Eastern. along with other fabulous podcasts not also at 8:30 Eastern, including Campaign Roundtable, Biggest Fan, and This Week in Blizz. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can find me, Jocelyn, at GISGamer. You can find Ryan at RMurphy, and don't forget to follow the show at The Gamers Inn. You can also find us on Facebook or Google+. And don't forget to leave us an iTunes review, as it's the best way for our show to reach new listeners. So before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out and thank you to my brother Greg for creating our awesome music. You can find him on Twitter at SoundsInfluence. We would also like to thank Joel Duggan of Starcrossed Online, who drew our Twitter avatars and created our logo. You can find him on Twitter at Joel Duggan or read his comic at starcrossed.online.com. Thanks for staying at the Gamers Inn, and remember to tune in next week.